I was standing in line at a little coffee shop in Asheville, North Carolina, arguing with myself over whether I should spend $6 on a cinnamon scone when my phone buzzed. At 72, I'd reached the age where spending $6 on a pastry felt like a financial decision requiring congressional approval. The young barista smiled. "Sir, you want the scone or not?" I looked at it, looked at my wallet, looked back at the scone. "Depends. Is it life-changing?" She laughed. "No, but it'll make you smile." "Lady, at my age, smiling's expensive." She grinned. "I'll throw in extra butter." "No, you're speaking old people language." "My name is Walter Briggs, retired electrician, widower, owner of 3 ugly lamps nobody wanted after my wife Martha passed away. Those lamps looked like something a drunk pirate would have decorated with. Martha loved them, so I kept them. Grief makes people do funny things. Some people keep jewelry, some keep photographs. I kept ugly lamps. Life is stubborn. That morning had started quietly, nothing unusual, nothing dramatic, just coffee rain against the window, and me trying to decide if I should finally throw away the burnt turkey recipe Martha ruined every Thanksgiving. Then my phone buzzed.
Dad!
It was my daughter Kimberly. 50 years old, divorced twice, always chasing happiness somewhere else. She had inherited Martha's eyes. Unfortunately, she had inherited my own stubbornness too. I called immediately. She answered laughing, actually laughing. "Hi, Daddy." Something about that laugh bothered me. It wasn't joy, it was victory. "You okay?" I asked. "Oh, I'm fantastic." "Good, you should be happy too." "Why?" Another laugh. "Because I just solved all our problems." "Our problems? Your house?" I frowned. "My house?" "Yep." Silence. Then she said something so bizarre I thought I'd heard wrong. "I sold it." I blinked. "What?" "I sold your house." I waited. Maybe she'd say she was joking, maybe she'd laugh. Maybe I'd hear hidden cameras and somebody from television jumping out. Nothing. Just Kimberly breathing happily. "Kimberly, what exactly did you just say?" "I sold your house."
"How? Relax."
"The buyer's already paid."
"Buyers."
I sat down hard. The young barista noticed. "You okay?" I held up a finger. No, I was not okay. On the phone, Kimberly continued. "Dad, you weren't using all that space anyway." "What buyers?" "Oh, a nice couple from Florida." "What are you talking about?" "They wanted it furnished." My chest tightened. "Kimberly, that's impossible." "No, Daddy." "Done. I already transferred everything." One hashed. "The furniture too." "Furniture?" She sounded annoyed. "Yes. Honestly, you should thank me." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because nothing made sense. "You sold my furniture, most of it." "My truck." "No. Nobody wanted that ugly thing." "My garage tools." "Included." "My photographs." Silence. Then she sighed. "Dad, they're just old pictures." "Old pictures." 48 years of marriage. Pictures of Martha holding our babies. Pictures of Christmas mornings. Pictures of fishing trips. Pictures of ordinary days. Just old pictures. Something inside me hurt. Not anger, not yet. Just sadness. The barista quietly slid the cinnamon scone toward me. "On the house." I smiled weakly. "Thank you," she whispered. "Bad phone call. You ever have one of those days where reality gets drunk?" She laughed nervously. Meanwhile, Kimberly was still talking. "Dad, you should actually thank me." "For what?" "I'm taking a Europe trip." "What?" "Paris, Rome, Greece, Spain." I thought I'd miss it again. Europe. Life is short. I stared out the window. Rain. People walking. Normal life. Meanwhile, my daughter had apparently sold my life. "Kimberly." "What?" "Where are you?" "At the airport." I nearly dropped the phone. "Airport? Boarding starts soon." "You sold my house and went to the airport." "Relax, relax, Dad, honestly." Then she laughed, actually laughed, and said words I'll never forget. "Trash doesn't need property." The coffee shop suddenly became silent. Even though people were talking, even though machines hissed, even though cups clinked, everything inside me stopped. Trash. She had called me trash. The same man who worked double shifts to buy her braces, the same man who slept in his truck after hurricanes restoring power, the same man who sold his fishing boat to pay for her college. Trash. The barista looked concerned. "Sir," I realized tears had appeared. Embarrassing tears. Old men hate crying in public. We're ridiculous that way. Kimberly continued. "Anyway, Kimberly." "What?" "I have one question." "What?" "Whose idea was this?" She laughed. "My boyfriend, Gavin."
Gavin.
39, fitness coach, white teeth, no real job, professional expert in spending other people's money. I closed my eyes. Martha used to say, "People who smile too much around money scare me." She would have hated Gavin.
"Dad, yes."
"Aren't you mad?" I looked at the ugly rain outside, looked at Martha's photograph in my wallet, and smiled. Not because I wasn't hurt, not because I wasn't disappointed, but because suddenly something incredibly strange hit me. Something Kimberly clearly didn't know. Something Gavin definitely didn't know. Something that made me almost laugh. I quietly picked up the free scone, took one bite, and finally answered, "No, sweetheart. No, you're not angry. No." Wise smiled. Because after 60 years, life teaches you strange lessons. And one of those lessons is this: never panic when foolish people celebrate too early. I took another bite and said softly, "Kimberly, what? The house you sold wasn't mine." Silence, complete silence. Then I heard Gavin in the background. What did he say? And Kimberly whispered nervously, "Dade, what do you mean?" At that exact moment, my phone buzzed again, unknown number. And the voice message notification simply read, "Mr. Briggs, this is attorney Susan Harlan. We need to talk immediately. Something has happened with the storage unit." And suddenly, I realized this nightmare had become much bigger than a house. I stared at that voice message for several seconds. Not because I was afraid. At 72, fear changes. You stop fearing embarrassment. You stop fearing what strangers think. You stop fearing wrinkles and gray hair. What you start fearing is phone calls that begin with, "We need to talk." Those words never bring puppies or pancakes. They bring trouble. And trouble had apparently decided to make itself comfortable in my life. Kimberly was still on the line. I didn't answer. "Dad, hold on, hold on." "What do you mean, hold on?" I got another call. "Dad, answer me. What do you mean the house wasn't yours?" I looked outside. Rain had become heavier. The barista, whose name tag said "Haley," placed another napkin beside me. Still breathing, she asked softly, "Barely. My grandfather says bad days need sugar. Smart man. He says sad people need pancakes." I smiled. He's right. Kimberly's voice exploded through the speaker.
D8, I sighed.
"Sweetheart, I'll call you back." "No." Click. For the first time in my life, I hung up on my daughter. Haley raised an eyebrow. "Family. The kind you don't loan money to." She laughed. "That's specific. You learn things after 70. I called attorney Susan Harlan. She answered immediately. "Omet."
Briggs, that's me. Where are you? Coffee shop.
"Good. I am already sitting. I need to ask you something." "Okay." "Have you been to storage unit B117 recently?" My stomach tightened. "When was the last time?" "Maybe 6 months." Silence. "Mr. Briggs, someone tried to access it yesterday." "What?" "They had documents." "What documents?" "Fake documents." I froze. "Excuse me, they claimed ownership."
Ooh.
"We don't know." My heart skipped. Then another thought hit me. Kimberly.
No way.
Not Kimberly. Not my little girl who used to collect ladybugs in jars. Not the child who cried when goldfish died. Not the teenager who made me birthday cards with terrible drawings. Surely not. Susan spoke carefully. "Mr. Briggs, the manager refused access because the signatures didn't match." "What was inside the unit?" "You tell me." I swallowed. "Anything else?" "Boxes." "What kind?" "My wife packed them." Silence. Then Susan said something strange. "Mr. Briggs, your wife was organized." I smiled sadly. Martha labeled everything. Apparently. Why? Because whoever wanted in knew exactly which unit to target. I sat up. What? They weren't guessing. I felt cold outside. Thunder rolled. Susan continued. "We need to meet. Today. Immediately." Meanwhile, my phone buzzed again. Kimberly. Ignored again. Buzz ignored. Buzz ignored. Finally, text messages started arriving. "Daybolu men. Kelil memenoido hate hoas." And still a me. Gavin's message followed. "Briggs, there's been a misunderstanding. Funny. 5 minutes ago I was trash. Now I was Mr. Briggs." Titles are funny things. They appear when money disappears. Haley noticed my smile. "Good news." "No." "Then why are you smiling?" "People become polite when they're scared." She nodded. "My ex-boyfriend became religious after I kicked him out." I laughed. "That tracks." She pointed at my scone. "You finished it." Grief and pastries. Strong combination. I stood, paid for my coffee. Haley stopped me. "Sia, yeah, you remind me of my grandpa. Good thing." "The best." She hugged me. Young people don't realize old men need hugs too. We're just stubborn about admitting it. Outside, rain soaked the streets. I climbed into my old Ford truck. The truck coughed like a dying walrus. "Come on, old girl." She started, still ugly. I muttered. Martha used to call that truck my second wife, jailous woman. As I drove downtown, memories kept attacking me. Kimberly at age 8. Kimberly at 16. Kimberly dancing with Martha in the kitchen. Kimberly crying when her mother died. Where had she gone? Or maybe the question was worse. Had she always been this person? Old people spend years asking themselves painful questions. Did I fail? Did I miss something? Did I love too much? Or not enough? By the time I reached Susan's office, my head hurt. Susan Harlan was 66, retired twice, came back because she got bored. Walter. Susan. She handed me coffee. Bad day. Scale of 1 to 10, 20. Then yes, her office smelled like books and cinnamon. Pictures of grandchildren covered the walls. Susan sat. Walter. What? I need you calm. Impossible. She smiled. We'll settle for conscious. I laughed. She opened a file, then another, then another. Do you remember Martha's memory boxes? My heart stopped. Memory boxes, yes. Martha made dozens. 42. I stared. 42. Susan nodded. She documented everything. I smiled through tears. Sounds like Martha. Letters, recipes, photographs, videos, voice tapes, family records. Then Susan reached into her desk and placed an old cassette tape on the table. I blinked. Martha's. Found in the storage unit inventory. My throat tightened. Martha recorded something. Apparently, I held the tape like it was gold. Suddenly I could hear her laugh in my head. She hated technology, still used recipe cards, still wrote grocery lists, still yelled at microwaves, still sang terribly. God, she sang terribly. Susan watched quietly. Yeah, there's something else. I looked up. The house Kimberly sold. Yeah, it wasn't legally yours, I know. But do you know whose name was actually on it? I smiled slightly. Martha's. Susan nodded. I frowned. What? It wasn't Martha's either. Every hair on my neck stood up. What? Susan slid a document toward me and whispered softly, Walter, 21 years ago your wife changed something very important. Before I could speak, my phone rang. Kimberly. And when I answered, I didn't hear my daughter. I heard screaming and a terrified voice crying, Mr. Briggs, pale pius! Tos piopela biongo uasakasesoti off ate. And I realized the couple from Florida had just discovered a truth none of us expected. For a second, I thought I had misunderstood. Old ears aren't what they used to be. But panic sounds the same at every age. Mr. Briggs. The woman cried. Please don't hang up. I'm here. My husband and I just arrived with our things, and there are movers outside. They're saying they own the property. I looked at Susan. She looked at her of a spoke. The woman continued. We bought the house from your daughter.
Mom, calm down.
What's your name? Elaine. Okay, Elaine. My husband Frank is arguing with them right now. Who are the movers with? I don't know. Then another voice shouted in the background. Frank, don't touch that, followed by a man's voice. We have legal authorization. Susan stood up immediately. Walter. I put the phone on speaker. Her eyes widened. Dear Lord. Elaine started crying. We spent our retirement money. My heart sank. Not because of Kimberly, not because of Gavin. Because Frank and Elaine sounded like me and Martha. Two older people trying to enjoy what little time they had left. Nobody deserved this.
Yes.
Leave the arguments. But, listen to me. She stopped. Okay, get back in your car. But our boxes. Boxes can be replaced. Silence. Then Frank came onto the phone. You are. No, Frank. I'll fight these crooks. Frank, how old are you? 74. Then stop acting 24. Susan laughed despite herself. Frank sighed. My wife says I do stupid things. Smart woman. Elaine sniffled. I once tried fixing the roof in flip-flops. Frank, I said, go get your wife ice cream. What? Ice cream? Right now? Yes, have bigger problems. No, you have stress. Stress needs ice cream. Susan whispered. Frank finally laughed. Chocolate. Chocolate. We'll wait. Good. After hanging up, Susan closed her eyes. This is getting uglier, apparently. Then she slid the old document across the desk. What? 21 years ago Martha changed ownership. To whom? Susan smiled. Not ownership. What then? The trust. I frowned. Martha hated trusts. Exactly. She called them lawyer magic. Apparently she changed her mind. My chest tightened. What trust? Susan opened another folder. The Willow Foundation. I blinked. Foundation? No, she smiled. Relax. Not that kind. It's the name of the family trust. I exhaled. Thank goodness. Created 21 years ago. By Martha. Why? Susan looked uncomfortable. Because she worried. Worried about what? She paused. Kimberly. I stared. What? Martha came to me 6 months after Kimberly's first divorce. I swallowed hard. She said something I never forgot. Susan took off her glasses. Walter loves with his whole heart. That's beautiful. But one day our daughter might confuse love with entitlement. Tears filled my eyes. That sounded exactly like Martha. Susan smiled sadly. If that day comes, I need him protected. He'll never protect himself. I couldn't speak. because that was also true. Martha knew me better than anyone. She always joked I would have given away my last sandwich and apologized for not having chips. Susan continued. The trust owned the property. So Kimberly sold something she legally couldn't sell. And the money. Susan grinned for the first time. The title company froze everything. What? Every penny. I nearly laughed. Gavin must be thrilled. Oh, Walter, she smiled. You haven't heard the best part. There is a best part. Europe. What about Europe? They never left. What? Susan laughed. They missed the flight. I stared. Seriously. Airport security. Gavin's the scene. Of course he did. He argued with staff. Naturally. He recorded employees. Naturally. They removed him. I burst out laughing. Real laughing, the kind that hurts old ribs. Susan laughed too. Apparently Kimberly spent 3 hours crying. I wiped tears. Martha, you sneaky woman. At that moment my phone buzzed. Kimberly. Again, this time I answered. Dad. No laughter, no smirking, only panic. Dad, we have a problem. Do you? Dad, don't do this. Do what? I made a mistake. Silence. Not angry silence, sad silence. Because I remembered pigtails, birthday candles, dance recitals, tiny shoes. Dad. Yes. Gavin left. What? It took everything. I closed my eyes. Not satisfaction, just exhaustion. Everything. He emptied the accounts. And he disappeared. I sat quietly. Kimberly sobbed. Dade. Yes. I know I don't deserve help. No argument there. But I don't know what to do. I looked at Martha's old cassette tape sitting on Susan's desk and suddenly remembered something. 3 months before she died, Martha had smiled and said, one day Kimberly will break her own heart. I asked why. Martha smiled, because life teaches stubborn people slowly. Then she added something strange. And when that day comes, promise me one thing. What? Don't save her immediately. I had laughed. Why? Because pain teaches. And after she's learned. Martha kissed my forehead. Then be her father. Back in Susan's office, tears rolled down my cheeks. Kimberly whispered, Dad, and before I could answer, Susan suddenly turned pale. Walter. What? She stared at the cassette tape. Her voice shook. That wasn't supposed to be there. What? The tape. What about it? Susan slowly stood and whispered. Walter, I thought we lost that recording 15 years ago. I looked at the tape in my hand. And for the first time since Martha died, I heard her voice, not in my memory, not in my dreams, but faintly, very faintly, coming from inside the tape recorder Susan had accidentally switched on, and Martha's voice said, if you're hearing this, something happened to Kimberly. Susan and I froze. Neither of us touched the recorder. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe, not because I was scared, because grief is strange. You spend years begging God for one more conversation, one more joke, one more bad song, one more complaint about burnt turkey. And then suddenly, after 15 years, my wife's voice filled a quiet office, old and scratchy, but unmistakably Martha. If you're hearing this, something happened to Kimberly. I sat down hard. Susan covered her mouth. Martha continued. Walter, if this tape reached you, then either Susan finally cleaned her office, Susan laughed through tears, or our daughter made another mess. I smiled. That was Martha, always teasing, always seeing life sideways. Then her voice softened. If Kimberly is hurting, don't rush to rescue her. I closed my eyes. Exactly what she'd told me before she died. Pain is a teacher, sweetheart. Susan wiped tears, and stubborn people need extra lessons. I laughed. Even after 15 years, she was still bossing me around. Then Martha said something that broke me. Walter, stop blaming yourself. I froze, because I had blamed myself. Every single day, for not saving her from cancer, for working too much, for being too tired, for getting old, for all the things widowers blame themselves for. Her voice continued. You loved us. Simple. No speeches. Just, you weren't perfect. No husband is. But you stayed. You fixed broken things. You made pancakes. You loved ugly lamps because I loved ugly lamps. I laughed through tears. Susan was crying openly now. Then Martha said, and if Kimberly finally falls hard enough to understand love, then don't punish her forever. Be her father. Not her wallet. Not her servant. Her father. Silence. Then one last sentence. And Walter, life is stubborn. The tape ended. Neither Susan nor I spoke. Finally she whispered, God, I miss her. Me too. We sat there quietly. Old people understand silence. Young people think silence means something is wrong. Sometimes silence is love. My phone rang again. Kimberly, I answered. Dade.
Yeah.
I have nowhere to go.
Where are you?
Airport parking lot. Still. I've been sitting here since this morning. She started crying again. Dead. I think Gavin used me. No. What? I absolutely used you. She sniffled. You don't have to be sarcastic. I'm old, Kimberly. Sarcasm is free entertainment. That earned a tiny laugh. Good. Crying people need laughter. Half tank. Good. Money. No. Food. No. Common sense. Dead-eyed.
Sorry.
Silence. Then I asked, did you learn anything? More silence. Then a broken voice. Mom would have been ashamed. No. What? Disappointed maybe, but never ashamed. She cried harder.
I called you trash? I remember.
I sold your things. I remember. I ruined everything. Noke. No. You damaged things. Things can heal. Then she whispered something I hadn't heard in years. I'm scared, Daddy, not Dad. Daddy, the little girl from 40 years ago. I closed my eyes. Martha, you win again. Come home. She sobbed. Yeah, but no Gavin, no lies, no money, no excuses.
No blaming.
Okay, you work, okay. You apologize to Frank and Elaine. Okay, you help me clean the garage. Dad. I hate the garage. Consequences. That earned another tiny laugh. 3 days later she arrived. She looked terrible. No makeup, red eyes, wrinkled clothes. Life had hit her. Good. Not because I enjoyed her pain. Because pain had finally slowed her down. She stood in the driveway crying. I don't deserve this. No. She blinked. What? You don't. More tears. But family isn't earned. It's lived. Then she hugged me. And for the first time since Martha died, I felt our daughter again. Not the angry woman. Not the selfish woman. Just Kimberly. Broken.
Human. Real?
Months passed. Kimberly got a job at a bookstore. Hated every minute. Customers annoyed her. Children annoyed her. Printers terrified her. Technology hated her. But she kept showing up. That's what matters. One afternoon while cleaning the garage, she held one of Martha's ugly lamps. Mom actually liked this. Terrible taste. She laughed. Looks like a drunk pirate decorated it. I nearly dropped the toolbox, because those were my exact words from years ago. And for the first time in forever, the house felt alive. Not perfect. Not healed completely. Just alive. Frank and Elaine got every penny back. They visited occasionally. Frank still wore flip-flops in inappropriate places. Elaine still worried too much. We became friends. Old people collect friends differently. We don't care about impressive people. We care about kind people. Haley from the coffee shop visited too. She brought pancakes once. Grandpa says sad people need pancakes. Smart old man. One evening, Kimberly and I sat on the porch. Sunset, crickets, silence, good silence. She asked quietly, Daddy, yeah. Why didn't you hate me? I looked at the sky. Thought about Martha. Thought about ugly lamps. Thought about all the years. And smiled. Because broken things still work. She cried. I cried. Even the dog looked emotional. And somewhere, I swear I could almost hear Martha laughing, probably making fun of all of us. Because life is stubborn, and love is too.